是向心向好。一、工业生产较快增长，装备制造业和高技术制造业增长加快。1到2月份全国规模以上工业增加值同比增长5.9%，比上年全年加快0.1个百分点。分3大门类看，采矿业增加值同比增长4.3%，制造业增长6.9%。电力、热力、燃气及水的生产和供应业。
In terms of the three major categories, the added value of the mining industry increased by 4.3% year-on-year, manufacturing industry increased by 6.9%, and the added value of the equipment manufacturing industry increased by 10.6% year-on-year, 2.9 percentage points faster than the same period last year, and the added value of high-tech manufacturing increased by 9.1%, 0.2 percentage points faster. By economic type, the added value of state-owned enterprises increased by 3.7% year-on-year, and the joint enterprises increased by 6.6%, and the number of foreign-funded enterprises with investment from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan increased by 3.2%, and private enterprises increased by 6.7%, and the output of new energy vehicles, 3D printing, and industrial robots increased by 47.7%, 30.2%, and 27% year-on-year, respectively. On the month-on-month basis, the added value of industrial enterprises above designated size increased by 0.51% in February over the previous months. And the manufacturing purchasing managers index was 50.2% in February, 1.1 percentage points faster than the previous months. Second, the growth trend of the service industry is relatively good. The modern service industry has grown rapidly, and in terms of different industries, information transmission software, information technology services, leasing and business services, and the number for the wholesale retail and financial industry increased by 9.3%, 8.8%, 5.6%, and 5.5 percentage points, respectively. An index of business activity in the service sector was 50% in February. The expectation index of business activity in service sector was 56.9%. Among them, the business activity index of air transport, postal telecommunication, radio television, satellite transmission services, and monetary financial services, capital market services, and their industry are also in a relatively high range, with the prosperity range above 55%. Third, the growth of sales in the market accelerated, and for the first 2 months, the total retail sales of consumer goods was 3,373 billion yuan, increase of 1%. The retail sales of the rural area was 11,260 billion yuan, up by 4.6%. Based on the consumption type, the retail sales of goods were 3,393 billion yuan, up by 3.9%. Catering revenue was 979.2 billion yuan, up by 4.3%. The sales of basic living goods and some upgraded goods also have quite a good growth momentum. And the retail sales of grain, oil, food, sports, and recreational food, the goods above designated size increased by 11.5% and 25% respectively. The trade-in policy for consumer goods continued to be effective, and also the sales above the designated size are encouraged in cultural and office supplies, and the retails of furniture, household appliance, and audio-video equipment increased by 26.2%, 21%, and 11.7%, and 10.9% respectively. The online retail sales nationwide reached 2,276.3 trillion yuan, year-on-year increase of 7.3%. Online retail is 1,863.3 billion yuan, up by 5%. On a month-on-month basis, the consumption the total retail sales in February increased by 0.35% from the previous month. Fourth, the growth rate of fixed asset investment has rebounded. Investment in manufacturing and high-tech industries grew rapidly. For first 2 months, the national investment in fixed assets, not including the rural areas, was 5,261.9 trillion yuan, an increase of the billion yuan, a year-on-year increase of 4.1%. And the investment in subsectors, infrastructure increased by 5.6% year-on-year, manufacturing investment by 9%, and retail real estate development decreased by 9.8%. The sales area of a newly built commercial building nationwide was 107.46 million square meters, a decrease of 5.1%. The sales of a newly built commercial building were 1,025 billion yuan, down by 2.6%. In terms of production and research, investment in the primary industry increased by 12.2%. Investment in secondary industry increased by 11.4%, and in the tertiary industry increased by 0.7%. Private investment was flat year-on-year. Investment in high-tech industry increased by 9.7% year-on-year, of which information service, e-commerce services, computer and office equipment manufacturing, aerospace and equipment manufacturing increased by 66.4%, 31.9%, 31.6%, and 27.1% respectively. Month-on-month comparison, excluding rural household, the investment in fixed assets in February increased by 0.49%. Fifth, the import-export of goods were basically stable, and the trade total value of goods was 6,536.4 billion yuan, down by 1.2% year-on-year. Among them, export was 3,881.2 billion yuan, increase of 3.4%. Import was 2,655 billion yuan, down by 7.3%. Import and export of private enterprises increased by 2%, accounting for 46.4% of the total import and export, 1.8 percentage point over the same period last year increase. And six, the employment situation is generally stable. The surveyed urban unemployment rate was stable. The surveyed number was 5.4%, up 0.2 percentage points from the previous months. The number for the local registered labor force was 5.6%, while the number for the non-resident registered labor force was 5%. The surveyed unemployment rate of migrant agricultural household registration labor force was 5.1%. The number for the 31 large cities and towns were 5.2%. Average working hours weekly in enterprises nationwide was 47.1 hours. Seventh, a consumer price declined, while the number increased by 0.5% in January, while it's falling back down by 0.7% in February. For the first 2 months, the price of food, tobacco, alcohol fell by 0.7% year-on-year. Clothing price rose by 1.1%, while housing price increased by 0.1%. Prices of daily necessities and services decreased by 0.9%, and also transportation, telecommunication dropped by 1.6%. Education, cultural, and the entertainment prices rose by 0.6%. Healthcare price rose by 0.4%, and other supplies and services increased by 5.9%. Among the price of food, tobacco, and the liquor, the price of fresh vegetable decreased by 5.5%, and the grain decreased by 1.4%, and the fresh fruits decreased by 0.6%. Pork rose 8.8%. Core CPI, excluding food and energy, rose 0.3% year-on-year. On a month-on-month basis, the national consumer price rose by 0.7%. Year-on-year in January, down by 0.21% in February. And the month-on-month basis, the industrial producer price in the country fell by 2.2% year-on-year, and it fell by 2.3% in January, 0.2% month-on-month decrease, and the 2.2% decrease in February. All in all, for the first 2 months of this year, see various macroeconomic policies continue to take effect. The national economy continued to show the positive trend. The quality of the economy has been steadily improving. However, given that the external environment has become more complex and severe, the effective domestic demand is insufficient. Some enterprises have difficulties in production operation. Going forward, we must adhere to the guideline of Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, fully implement the Central Economic Work Conference and the 2 sessions guidance, and also adhere to the general principle of making progress while maintaining stability, and also to implement the new development philosophy, and also to cultivate driving forces and to manage the expectations, and also to promote the sustained economic recovery. Thank you. Now the floor is open for questions. With CMG, how do you evaluate the performance of China's economy for January and secondary? Any highlights or the positive changes? Thank you for your question. Since the beginning of this year, and with more proactive fiscal policy and moderate monetary policy continue to deliver, we could see that the synergy created by these 2 policies quite obvious. We could see that the employment is stable, and also we cultivated more the driving forces. So the overall economic show that the stable the upward trend. So for the first 2 months, we could see that first, it started off to a good start, and second, and the economy also showed upward trend since the Q4 of last year. In the condition of a deepening external adverse factors, the overall stability was maintained. So we could see that the productions remain and also show the increasing trend, while it's also expanding its scale, and also the new industry is steadily advancing. For the first 2 months, the added value of industrial enterprises above that size increased by 5.9%, 0.1 percentage point faster than the same period last year. And the number for equipment manufacturing industry increased by 10.6%, showing quite the boosting effect to the overall development of the whole industry. And also we could see that quite the vibrant Spring Festival economy that also dried the growth of the information technology, tourism, transportation, and the travel-related industries. For the first 2 months, the growth rate of the service industry production index increased by 5.6%, 0.4 percentage point faster than last year. Among them, the production index of information transmission software, information technology service leasing business increased by 9.3% and 8.8% respectively. In terms of demand, we could see that the trade-in policy for consumer goods continue to expand its scope, and also we could see a quite good momentum in terms of consumption in tourism, culture, and sports market. For the first 2 months, the total retail sales of consumer goods increased by 4.4%, 0.5 percentage point faster than the same period last year. And also during the Chinese New Year, the number of domestic tourists increased by 5.9% year-on-year. The transaction volume of the travel service on the platform increased by 20%. From 2024 to 2025 and the snow season, the cumulative passengers received by the ski resorts across the country increased by 22.8% year-on-year, and also domestic animated films has also broken a number of records in terms of box office. And also we have seen that the investment in manufacturing also rapidly, as well as in the infrastructure construction sector. For the first 2 months, investment in fixed assets increased by 4.1% year-on-year, 0.9 percentage point faster than the same period last year. Infrastructure investment increased by 5.6%, 1.2 percentage point faster than last year. Investment in manufacturing grew by 9%, significantly faster than the growth of total investment. Although impacted by some fluctuation caused by its New Year holiday, but overall we could see that the surveyed urban unemployment rate also stay stable, and the number is 5.3%, on par with the same number last year. And also we could see that development trend is quite satisfied, and it's mainly reflected in the steady development of the productivity, new productive forces, and also the market expectation, as well as the confidence, and also the development of green and low-carbon economy continue to be boosted, driving the rapid growth of new energy as well as green industry. For the first 2 months, the added value of high-tech manufacturing above that in the size increased by 9.1% year-on-year, and also the output of a new energy vehicle increased by 47.7%, which was a very rapid growth rate on the basis of last year's large base number. And this year we talk about that the key policies also showed that the continued effect. For the first 2 months, the excavation, product transport machine, household appliance, restrictors, household washing machines, and audio-video equipment, official supplies, and also telecommunication equipment all showed that double-digit growth. From the perspective of market expectations, macro policies are very active, and breakthroughs in new fields such as AI are promising, and especially General Secretary Xi Jinping made a very important speech at the Symposium on Private Enterprises, has also boosted development of enterprises in the private sector. And the Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index and the non-manufacturing business activity index was 50.2% and 50.4%. All in all, the overall economic operation was stable, and the growth rate of major indicators increased steadily, and new driving forces were cultivated and expanded. And we could see that this is also all happened under the condition that external adverse impacts was deepened, and it's not an easy warm result. It also showed the strong resilience of Chinese economy. However, having said that, the external environment is becoming more complex, severe, unstable, and uncertain. Domestic demand is still weak, and some enterprises still facing difficulties in their production operation. So going forward, we need to further deepen the opening up, and also to promote a sustained economic growth and improve people's livelihood. Thank you. With a Yellow River app, and the government work report this year sets this year's GDP target at around 5%. So judging from the current situation of the first 2 months, what are some favorable conditions for achieving the annual target this year? Thank you for your question. In this year's government work report, it's made it clear that the expected economic growth targets of about 5%. That's taken into the consideration of the overall situation at home and abroad. Judging from the pictures of this year, we could say that social expectations and the confidence has been boosted. That also laid the solid foundation to meet this year's expected goal of economic and social development. We could say that this year it got off to a good start. And also we have seen that China's economy remains stable. and also to foster a healthy development. First, the industrial foundation quite solid. A supporting role of the new productive forces is enhanced. And China owns all the categories of the industrial categories that clarified by the United Nations. The industrial system is complete, and the supporting capabilities are very strong. And China not only meets domestic demand, also could export to the whole world. And in the recent years, China has also redoubled its efforts to that innovation-driven development and make breakthroughs in core technologies in key fields, and also to adapt measures to the local conditions and develop that new quality productive forces, upgrade that development of the traditional industry, and emerging industries also showed quite good growth momentum. And also the future-oriented industries also is accelerating its layout, and also AI also drive that the relevant industries to embrace more opportunities. Second, the market demand space is broad, and there's a quite big foundation for further release of consumption investment potential. Market is the most scarce resource. China has a population of more than 1.4 billion people, a per capita GDP of more than $13,000. So the market potential is quite large, and space is wide, with huge development opportunities. With the gradual improvement of residents' consumption capability, the pace of consumption upgrading has accelerated, and digital and other new types of consumer spending. We talk about the pension care and also demand of the child care, and also education has further expanded. And also at the same time, there's a huge room for investment in new industrialization, new urbanization, energy-saving industries, and also that's the transformation of the people's livelihood. Has also shown that the favorable conditions to promote the orderly release of domestic demand potential. And also the comprehensive deepening of reform and opening up will also further stimulate the vitality and inject impetus to the development. The third plenary session of the 20th CPC Central Committee put forward more than 300 important reform measures. The results of the reform in key areas and the key links are gradually delivering, which will be conducive to breaking down deep-seated institutional obstacles and giving play to the decisive role of the market in the allocation of resources, and also to create a market-oriented, law-based, and international first-class business environment, and also to further promote a better combination of effective market and a promising government. Fourth, the macro policy have been effective that also help the economy continue to rebound. September 26 last year, the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee deployed a package of the incremental policies that also help to boost the confidence of the market, stimulate the vitality in the market, and promoted that economic rebound. And also received quite good, remarkable results. And also we could see that we will continue to implement more proactive macroeconomic policies. And this year is the last year of the 14th five-year plan period. All parties and sectors will focus on key tasks and continue to redouble their efforts to meet the goal. We should be clear that the expected economic growth target of around 5% is not that easy to be achieved. Therefore, it required more hard work to meet the goal, and we should seize the opportunities presented by the rebounded economic growth, and also to implement various macro policies, further deepen reform, and also opening up at a higher level and cultivate more the productive quality forces, and also to make solid progress in high quality development in order to realize the goal set for this year, and also to smoothly conclude the 14th five-year plan and the good start of the 15th five-year plan.
We saw that industrial output rose by 5.9% in the January to February period. Although this beat analyst estimates, it is lower than December last year. So do you think the risk of increasing U.S. tariffs could impact export growth and industrial output this year? Thank you.
请翻译一下。彭博社，我们注意到工业生产值有所下降，这是否受到如今美国对中国施加新关税的影响？
好，谢谢您的提问。应该说呢，今年
Thank you for your question.
工业生产呢，应该还是保持了一个比较
It should be said that since the beginning of this year, industrial production have maintained a relatively rapid growth, and also that last year, actually, the base number for the industrial growth rate was relatively high. So we are vigorously promoting new industrialization, and also that driven by the policies, we could see that a faster growth in the advanced manufacturing industry and also the upgrading of traditional industries. And also the enterprises also increased their expectations. First, the growth trend of industrial production is continued. For the first 2 months, the value added of the industrial sectors above that in size was 5.9%, among which the manufacturing industry increased by 6.9%, faster than the growth rate of the industrial added value. And also the equipment manufacturing industry grew by 10.6%, 2.9 percentage point faster over the previous year, also giving the stronger support for the steady and rapid growth of the industrial production. We talk about that the industrial growth rate was achieved in the same period last year under the condition of a high growth rate from January to from February, and also reflect the strong resilience of the China's industry and economy. Second, the development trend of high-end intelligent industries, LBS, in the context of accelerating the integration of scientific and technological innovation, the value added of high-tech manufacturing increased by 9.1% year-on-year, 0.2 percentage point faster than over the period of last year. In terms of the industrial robots, integrated circuits, increased by 27% and 19.6% respectively in terms of their output, and the large-scale application of domestic AI general model in key fields such as electronics and automobiles is accelerating. For the first 2 months, the added value of the digital product manufacturing increased by 9.1% year-on-year, and also the servers increased by 73%. And third, the green development of the industry is improving. The growth momentum of the new energy industry also showing good momentum, and especially for the green energies also increasing. And the output of lithium-ion battery for new energy vehicles increased by 47%, and also the 37.5% respectively, maintaining a high level of growth. And also the solar power generation also maintained a double-digit growth. And fourth, the overall improvement of enterprises' expectations. With the macro policies more active and the application of technologies such as AI showing breakthroughs that also bolstered the expectations to grow. And the manufacturing PMI in February was 50.2%, 1.1 percentage point up from the previous months. And the index of new orders in the manufacturing sector was 51.1%, 1.9 percentage points up. So that showed quite good growth momentum. However, we should note that the structural contradiction between market supply and demand is still prominent, and also prices in some industries are sluggish. Some enterprises are not performing well. Going forward, we will continue to improve the operation of the enterprises and to promote a high-quality development of industry. Thank you.
谢谢主持人。21世纪经济报道记者提问，请问如何看待1、2月份的房地产市场运行状况？
My question regarding the realistic market, how you evaluate the performance for the realistic market for the first 2 months. Thank you for your question. And the realistic market started since the beginning of this year has maintained a steady performance with the effectiveness of various policies to stabilize the property market. And the realistic market transaction was maintained its overall stability, and the market expectations are stable, and also is continued that the trend that from the curve showed that right now the upward trend. With the optimization adjustment of the policies in the realistic market and demand of the rigid and improved housing for residents is gradually released, and for the first 2 months, the year-on-year decline in the sales area and the sales amount of a newly built commercial housing was 7.8% and 4 percentage point and 14.5 percentage points narrowed. And the sales area and amount of newly built commercial housing in the first 2 months increased by 1.3% and 7.1% respectively, judging from the sales situation in the 40 key cities. And in terms of prices, it's continued to going up. The year-on-year decline in the sales prices of newly built commercial residence buildings and second-hand residential buildings in the first, second, and third-tier cities continue to narrow. Judging from the price, we could see that the year-on-year decline in first-tier cities narrowed by 0.4 percentage points, and 0.3 percentage point and 0.1 percentage point narrowed in the second, third-tier cities. And for the second-hand residential sales prices, 0.7 percentage points narrowed in the first-tier cities, 0.2 percentage points in both second and third-tier cities. And third, market expectations remain stable. The survey of realistic market, the practitioners, and February among the realistic development enterprises and intermediates, the 71.8% of the 70 large and medium-sized cities and said that they expect that the stable or increase of the housing and also the expectation of the market's institutions are generally stable. For the first 2 months, investment in the realistic market also narrowed. It declined by 0.8 percentage points. The decline in residential investment narrowed by 1.3 percentage points. And the decline in funds in place for realistic development enterprises is also 13.4 percentage points narrowed than the whole year of 2024. So on the whole, the realistic market has been gradually stable since the beginning of this year, continue to move towards the direction of stopping the decline and stabilizing the overall situation. However, it should be also noted that the realistic market in some areas is still in adjustment, so the pressures on the market is still there. And going forward, it's very necessary that we should release and implement policies based on the local conditions, and also efforts should also be made to renovate urban villages and also dilapidated houses in order to fully release the potential of the housing demand. Thank you. It's Yi-Cai. My question is, the CPI in February turned negative year-on-year and month-on-month. What's the reason behind, and how you rate the price trend? Thank you for your question. Everyone I know is quite concerned about CPI. I know that the Chinese New Year had quite an impact on CPI and the price factors, especially in the case of the different months of the Spring Festival, so that the CPI for the young year and month-on-month, the fluctuation could be occurred. So that's because of the pre-festival and also during the festival period, the price could be increased. And also after the Spring Festival, the demand dropped and also caused the price also decreased. I believe we share the same feeling that the price for food, transportation, that could all increase. And after the holiday, because of the demand fallback, so that's also caused the price to decrease. So normally Chinese New Year fall in January and February. And also that's because of the different months of the Spring Festival for each year. That also caused some the fluctuation in CPI. And the increase in CPI 0.5% increase in January. But in February, CPI dropped by 0.7%. This year, the Spring Festival was in January, but last year, the Spring Festival was in February. So if we take off the impact by the Spring Festival, the CPI rose by 0.1% year-on-year. In February, also we could see that the price of fresh vegetables in February, as well as the year-on-year decline in the price of automobiles, also pulled down the increase of CPI. And this year, because of the rain and snow freezing in some areas, the price also fluctuates, especially for the fresh vegetables. And in terms of the fuel cars and new energy vehicles also fell by 5% and 6%, causing CPI decrease by 0.16 percentage points. So all in all, if we not really take into consideration of these factors, then CPI increase moderately. And also some prices of the goods and services in February also actually increased. If we deduct energy and the industrial consumer goods actually rose by 0.2% year-on-year. The price of cultural entertainment, clothing, transportation, communication tools, and small household appliance increased between 1% and 1.6%. In terms of the service industry, the price of housekeeping service in February increased by 2.6%, and the catering or dining outside rose by 1.2%. This all show that the improved market demand. That also said that the supply of consumer goods in China's industry and also agriculture sector is sufficient, and supply of the services also generally stable, and the basis for maintaining price stability has not changed. And also at the same time, the economic recovery trend continues. The market demand is expected to continue to expand. There will be multiple channels for residents to increase their income.
Thank you. Market
so
News
that also
International.
will help to increase the consumption.
In January, February, export and import year-over-year growth slowed from December. What is your interpretation of this data, and what is the outlook for trade in the coming months given rising trade tensions? Thank you.
好，请翻译一下。美国国际市场新闻社1月到2月的进出口同比增速较去年12月放缓，您如何解读这些数据？美国对中国施加新关税可能对中国的出口造成多大影响？您如何看待未来进出口的发展轨迹？谢谢。
好，谢谢您的提问。
Thank you for your question. Yes, indeed. The intertwined international environment, everyone quite concerned about the development situation of foreign trade. This year, the world economy also showed a slow recovery, and the trade restrictions continue to increase, and challenges facing global economic and trade growth are increasing. In a complex external environment, this is influenced by the factors of the reduction in China's import-export of goods. We look at if we take off that the incomparable factors, the exports show that they maintain the growth, especially that the growth trend of key products such as mechanical electronic products also showed good growth momentum and also showed quite good strong resilience of foreign trade of China and also the strong the international competitiveness. As Minmin showed in the following areas, first from the perspective of major trading partners, imports export to ASEAN and the United States. ASEAN countries also showed good momentum. With the RCEP implemented in details, the trade between China and ASEAN countries has maintained a good development trend. And also in terms of China-US trade, we could see that the strong complementarity of trade between both sides is still emerging. So the China's export and import volume of goods with the United States increased by 3.5% year-on-year. Second, from the perspective of trade, operators and the import-export of private enterprises continue to grow, and also they become the main force and driving the growth of foreign trade. And also, judging from the situation this year, the private enterprises have also actively responded to the complex environment in the international market and taken the initiative to open up new areas of foreign trade. For the first 2 months, the import-export of private enterprise increased by 2%, better than the overall foreign trade. And third, with the upgrading development of China's industry, the market competitiveness for the mechanical electronic products has also been continually enhanced, and the export of integrated circuits, automobiles, and the products continue to grow. And China's export of mechanical electronic products increased by 5.4% year-on-year, and the export of automatic data processing equipment and parts increased by 11.7%. Integrated circuits increased by 13.2% and 3.7% up in the automobiles. So China's foreign trade foundation, very stable, as the world's largest country in trade of goods and also second in the trade of service. China also diversified its economic and trade relations, and also right now China has become a major trading partner for more than 150 countries and regions. And China has a complete industrial system and also with strong supporting capabilities. And also we could see that the overall trend will not change. China will continue its policies in opening up. China's industrial system is complete, innovation capabilities gradually improving, and the steady development of foreign trade has the foundation, the condition that also will create new opportunities for global economic and trade development. It's a CGTN Daily. How you evaluate the growth of the manufacturing investment, and what's the effect of the policy on large-scale equipment renewal, and what's your take on the growth trend of manufacturing investment next stage? Thank you for your question. The development of the manufacturing industry is also of a great concern to everyone. With the continuous advancement of high-end, intelligent, and green manufacturing, the effect of the policies also showed its effect. And also, for the first 2 months, we could see that investment in manufacturing increased by 9% year-on-year, quite the relatively rapid growth, and continuing the trend of a high growth since last year. It also showed features in the following areas. First, in terms of the structures, continue to improve. The investment in the equipment manufacturing industry grew rapidly. With the upgrading and development of the manufacturing industry, the expansion of demand for equipment products has led to growth of the industry. For the first 2 months, the equipment manufacturing industry represented a year-on-year increase of 8.9%. And the investment in railway, shipbuilding, aerospace, and the transportation equipment and the general equipment manufacturing increased by 37.6%, 21.6%, 37.3%, and 21.6% respectively, all faster than the average of the growth rate of manufacturing investment. Second, the transformation and upgrading of traditional industries increasing. And the first 2 months, investment in technology transformation in the manufacturing industry increased by 10%. And third, the high-tech development of the manufacturing industry also is further boosted. And we could see that investment in high-tech manufacturing also is increasing rapidly for the first 2 months. Aeronautics, or the investment in the manufacturing of aerospace vehicle equipment increased by 27.1%, and investment in the manufacturing of computers and office equipment increased by 31.6% year-on-year. And we could see that not only boosted development of manufacturing industry, also increased that finance. For the first 2 months, investment in the purchase and equipment purchase increased by 18%, a 2.3 percentage point faster than the previous year. It contributed 62.3% to the growth of total investment. And we have many favorable factors for the sustained growth of the manufacturing industry. First, the pace of industrial upgrading has accelerated. China is speeding up its march towards becoming a manufacturing power, and also that should be high-end, intelligent, and green manufacturing. And China also spent its efforts in accelerating the cultivation of the new quality productive forces, improving and promoting the transformation upgrading of traditional industry and developing emerging industry. And China also made a lot of breakthroughs. In recent years, China has made breakthroughs in fields of AI, large models, humanoid, the robots, quantum computing, and semiconductors that will also to pull the growth of the relevant industries. And also third, the role of policy support is obvious, and also the country also promotes that the policies of that the to trade in, and also that the renewal policies, so that will also continue to drive and support the investment growth in the manufacturing. So going forward, we will continue to give full play to the role of investment in expanding demand and optimizing supply. Thank you. With Reuters, question is that what's your expectation of the economic operation for this year's Q1, especially from the perspective of consumption? What do you think the effect of the policy to boost consumption? And also would like to ask the impact of U.S. tariff on China's economy in the future. Thank you for your question. Given the complex environment, I believe everyone is quite curious about the overall situation in the first quarter of this year. And we could see that the effect of macroeconomic policies continue to deliver its effect. So the economic operation maintained stable. Although that the unilateralism and protectionism are on the rise, global monetary policies diverging, and the risk of the heightened volatility international market also intensified. Domestic demand is not strong enough. Some enterprises have difficulties in production operation. However, the fundamental trend of China's long-term economic growth has not changed. The super large-scale market is also there in place. Industrial system is complete with that the talent, rich talent resources, and also the vast room for the incremental, and also that the current policies continue to be effective. First, the economy has continued to pick up for the many major indicators, actually faster than the same period last year. For the first 2 months, the value added of industrial enterprises above that unit size increased by 5.9%, 0.1 percentage point faster than the previous year, and the service industry production index increased by 5.6%, 0.4 percentage point faster than the previous year. Investment increased by 4.1%, 0.9 percentage point faster than same period last year. And also the total retail sales of consumer goods increased by 4%, 0.5 percentage point faster than the last year. As the key indicators all showed that the stable and rising trend. And second, domestic demand is expected to expand gradually. In terms of consumption, the Office of the Central Committee and Office of State Council issued a policy to further boost consumption, and also we laid out special action plans. The various regions departments have also launched their plan to promote consumption, and also that the trade-in policies also continue to expand. So we could see that the consumer confidence index in February was 0.9 percentage points higher than the previous months, as also rising for 3 consecutive months. And also in terms of investment in infrastructure construction increased by 5.6%, 1.2 percentage point faster than the last year. And investment in high-tech industry increased by 9.7%, much faster than the overall growth of investment. Third, the effects of macroeconomic policies will continue to appear. The key policies will continue to intensify. And for the first 2 months, because of the trade-in policy, the household appliance furniture above the designated size, as well as cultural office supplies and the communication equipment, all maintained a double-digit growth. And with that, the massive equipment renew investment in purchase of equipment tools increased by 18%, with the gradual implementation of a more active fiscal policy and moderately prudent monetary policy, and it will also help the economy continue to pick up. Fourth, the market expectations and confidence have bolstered with the effective the various macroeconomic policies. The economic operation has rebounded. And also positive trend also occurred in the property market, the stock market, and also breakthroughs have been in the cutting-edge fields such as AI that also boosted the confidence of the society. The realistic market continued to show a stable trend, and also we could see that PMI for February also increased. And the non-manufacturing business activity index continue to be in the boom range, and these all conducive to further promote the smooth circulation of the economy. All in all, although facing some risk challenges, China's economic foundation is stable with many favorable conditions. So with many macro policy combination continue to be effective, so the economy is expected to maintain an overall stable and steady development trend in the first quarter. Thank you. Thank you, with Dingduan News. In this year's work report of the government, and the main expected goal of the surveyed urban unemployment rate of about 5.5%, with more than 12 million people will be employed. in this year. So what's your take on that? Thank you for your question. Employment is a major issue for people's livelihood. And this year, that the relevant departments also actively introduce policies to stabilize and expand employment. Judging from the previous experience, before the Chinese New Year, the migrant workers returned to their hometown, and also the return to work after Spring Festival, there will be certain changes in the supply and demand of the labor market. So that's because of this seasonal fluctuation. And we could see this year also follow that trend. So the number for the surveyed urban unemployment rate slightly increased. And the number for February was 5.4%, 0.2 percentage points higher from the previous months. But all in all, can be said that it's still in a normal range. And the average for the first 2 months of the unemployment rate in cities and towns across the country was 5.3%. Basically the same as the same period last year. And also we should notice that we still need to make arduous efforts to stabilize and expand employment this year. And this year, expected to have around 12.22 million people graduate. And the skill of the population lifted out of poverty need to be maintained. So this year in the government work report, they also pointed out that we should intensify our efforts to stabilize, expand employment, improve the employment for key groups, and also to carry out a large-scale vocational skills training and to optimize employment and entrepreneurship services, strengthen the protection of workers' rights and interests. All these policies and measures will help to support high-quality and full employment going forward. With the all-round expansion of domestic demand, the solid promotion of high-quality development and transformation upgrading of traditional industries and cultivation and growth of emerging industries and new business formats that will all lay a solid foundation for expanding employment. And due to the interest of time, one last question, please.
During the two sessions, SciTech innovation is no doubt a highlight. Keywords include new quality product forces, AI plus low-altitude economy. So from the data in the first 2 months, how does SciTech innovation drive the growth of new quality product forces? Thank you. Quality productive forces is surely a key word, and it is highly valued by the Central Committee of the CPC. And the departments are launching new efforts and measures that are taking effect. And we're making new grounds, like expanding digital economy and the green economy. Traditional industries are steadily transformed. So first, emerging industries are growing very fast. In the first 2 months, value added of high-tech manufacturing above designated size increased by 9.1%, 0.2 percentage point higher. And domestic AI big model is a big surprise. AI Plus and other innovative products are accelerating, greatly changing the mode of production and boosting high-end manufacturing. In the first 2 months, yield of integrated circuit, wafer, industrial robot, and bullet train and civilian drones grew respectively by 19.6%, 27%, 64%, and 91.5%. Second, digital economy is more dynamic. Digital economy is an important cornerstone in different industries in the first 2 months, value added of digital production above designated size grew by 9.1%.
3D 打印设备、虚拟现实设
From
备等智能产品的
different
产量
products in
分
the
别
first 2
增长了
months, yield of
32%、
3D printing devices and VR devices grew
5G
by
的规模化应用也
30.2%
在
and
持续推进。 春
37.7%.
节期间的 5G 移动互联网用户接入流量
5G scale
比上年同期
application is
增长了
advancing.
35%，
In the Spring Festival, 5G
占移动互
users
联网
access
用户接入
traffic
流量的比重达
increased
到了
by
65.9%。
35%.
第三， 绿色
60.9%
经
of
济
all
打造
mobile internet
新
user
的增长
access
点。
traffic.
绿色转型扎实推进，为新
Third,
质生产力的
green
发展
economy
注入了
is
新
a
的
new
动力
driving。force
前2个月呢，
for
规模
new
以上
quality
工
productive
业
forces. In the
规模以上工业的
first
风
2
力和太
months,
阳能发电量呢，同比分别增
the
长了
power generated
10.4%
from
和
wind and solar
27.4%。
energy in
那么新能
industries
源汽
over
车、
designated
汽车用
size grew by
锂离子动力电池、
10.4% and
碳纤维及复合材料等绿色
27.4%
产品的产
respectively.
量
And
分别增
EVs,
长了
lion batteries for
47.7%、
vehicles, carbon fiber and its
35.4% 和
composites
51.5%。
grew by 47.7%,
产业转型升级的步伐
35.4% and
稳健。
51.5% respectively.
产业数字化转型、智能化
Last,
升级，为新质
Industries
生产
are
力的发
steadily
展增
transformed
添了新
and
的来源。
upgraded. Industries
前
are
2个月，制造
going
业
digital
技改
and
投资
intelligent,
同比增长了
further
10%，
boosting
快
new
于全部
quality
投资
productive
5.9 个
forces.
百分点。
In the first 2 months,
目
investment
前，
in
我国已经建
technological
成了
transformation in
3万多家基础级
manufacturing
智能工厂，
increased by 10%.
1200余家先进级智能工厂，
And now we have
230
over
余家卓越级智能工厂，
30,000
将
basic
有效
smart
赋能
factories,
产
over
业的转型
1,200
升级。
advanced smart
总的来
factories,
看呢，
and
今年以来新质生产力培育
230
壮大，
top-class
发
smart
展态势
factories,
持续向
greatly
好。
empowering
下一步要在
industrial
激发传统
upgrading.
产业活力，加快培育发展新兴产业，
Next,
积极布局未来
we're
产业
going
上
to
下
make
更大的
efforts
功夫，
in
推动新质生产力加快发展，
incentivizing
为我国经济发
traditional
展
industries,
注入更
fostering
多新的动力。
emerging
谢谢。
industries, and
谢谢林慧司长，
planning for
谢谢各位记者
future-oriented
朋友们的参
industries.
与。今天的
Thank
新
you.
闻发布会
Thank
就
you
到
very
这里，
much.
大家再见。